Tribal Health and Human Services Department of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes is proud to present Good Medicine, a program dedicated to the wellness of the Flathead Nation. The mission is summarized quite simply: a healthier people, a stronger nation. We will strive to make Good Medicine a reliable source of ideas and information about health issues so that everyone can make informed decisions about their own lifestyle and health care. You will meet health professionals, tribal government and spiritual leaders, and interesting people from the tribal community discussing important health issues that profoundly affect us all.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Good Medicine. We're coming to you today from the PBS station at Salish Kootenai College on the beautiful campus in downtown Pablo. And I'm Lori Lambert, and I'm in for Larry Pitts. We have an amazing woman with us today as our guest. She's Jennifer Greene. She's a poet, she's a published author, and she's a teacher. And she's going to read some of her poetry for us and talk to us about her new book and her job. So welcome to Larry Pitts' show.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm a member of this tribe, of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribe, and I was born and raised here on the reservation, and I graduated from Arley High School, so very local. I'm also Salish and I'm also, in addition to Salish, I'm also Chippewa and Cree. My mom is from Rocky Boy, and after I graduated from high school in Arley, I went to Eastern New Mexico University in Portales, New Mexico, and earned a bachelor's degree in English. And then I went to Northern Arizona University, where I earned a master's degree in English with an emphasis on creative writing. And then in my last year of graduate school, I won the 1998 North American Native Authors First Book Award, and I got a book published by the Greenfield Review Press.
That is amazing. And I'm sure that women and girls on this reservation will look at this program today and see you as a role model for them.
Yeah.
I think it's just amazing. Your book is about poetry.
Yes,
yeah.
Book of poems.
Mm-hmm. And what's the purpose of poetry and art?
The purpose, I think, of art and poetry is to communicate something. It's not something that's meant to be private. I think too often people write things and they say, well, I wrote this. I write poetry, but it's only for me. And I don't think that that's the true intent of art. Art is something that's meant to be communicated. Because I've kept journals in the past, and those were things I didn't show to anybody. And I didn't call myself a poet because I kept a journal. But poetry is something that's meant to be shared. Poetry is something that communicates ideas and thoughts in a fresh and meaningful way. And so that's what I think art and poetry should do. And that's what I try to do in my own work, is capture time, capture a moment, and share it with people.
With beautiful descriptive words, too.
Yeah, thanks.
You're right now, your position is with the Charcusta. You want to talk a little bit about that? Because we were talking about that before the program started, and I think that's a really interesting change from poetry. Yeah,
I work as the publisher of the Charcusta News, which is a new position for them, and I've been there since September, and it involves a lot of new skills, from being a supervisor, that kind of thing, but also being a writer, a journalist, being a journalist. That's a different kind of writing than I've done. But I like it because it gives me a chance to get out into the community. And but journalism is one of my favorite styles of writing because it's so lean, and it's very descriptive, but it's very lean. It's not overly descriptive, and it's very precise kind of writing. So I think in that sense it's similar to poetry, and I like doing it. Tell us a little bit about the publisher of your book.
and the man who published it and what happened when you got the award and all of that.
Yeah, Joseph and Carol Bruchac own the Greenfield Review Press, and they were the ones who chose me as the winner of this award. And so they published my book, and then the Native Writers Circle out of the University of Oklahoma gave me a monetary award and flew me down there the year that I won it. And I got to meet Linda Hogan, who's one of my favorite writers.
Oh, I love her writing too.
They gave her the a Lifetime Achievement Award at the same time, so that was neat. But when I won this award, I was still a student, and I was working at night, so I would stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning grading my papers. You know, because I was teaching a class and doing my own work, and then I would sleep until about 10 in the morning and then be to work at noon. So I was working a lot while I was going to school. And I got this call about 8 o'clock in the morning from the University of Oklahoma, and I didn't know who the man was. It was Gary Hobson, and he said, "You haven't heard, have you?" And I said, "No." He said, "You won." And he told me that I won the contest, and so I thought maybe it was a dream. Maybe I just wished I won. So I called the Greenfield Review Press because apparently they'd sent me a letter notifying me that I won, but I hadn't gotten it yet when Gary called me. So I wanted to make sure it was me. If they, Jennifer Greene with an E, you spelled my name right. So he assured me that it was me.
And you had to enter your poetry in a contest?
Yeah, it was a nationwide contest.
Wow.
And
That's
a
wonderful.
national call for submissions in Poets and Writers magazine. And my advisor at the time, my academic advisor, gave me the notification and told me I should send my thesis off to this contest. And I did. And I called him because it was just 2 days before the deadline is when I got the notification. And I was going to overnight mail them my manuscript, and they said, "We've extended the deadline a week." So I mailed it off, and then 2 weeks later I found out I won.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Besides Linda Hogan, are there other people who have influenced you in your writing?
When I didn't start writing poetry until I was 20. And Maya Angelou, her work, I think, influenced me a lot, because up until then, I didn't realize poetry could sound that way. I didn't realize poetry could sound so authentic to a person and so genuine. It didn't have to be this formal, stiff language. And also reading N. Scott Momaday and Joy Harjo, and knowing that there were other Native American people out there who were writing, and Simon Ortiz. Because up until then I hadn't been exposed to those people. I'd never even heard of them until my junior year in college. And so a combination of those things and having a friend who wrote poetry really helped me to start writing. And having a friend who would tell me, "You should write that down, that should be a poem," just our conversations. And so just knowing that there were other Native writers helped. And so that's one thing I hope to do in my own writing, is just by my existence here, and I volunteer a lot in the schools, just so people know that people like them, people who go to powwows and shop at Kmart, write poetry.
Yeah, it's amazing. How does the land influence your poems?
The land influences my poetry a lot, and I didn't realize it was such a big player in my poems, such a large presence, until someone else pointed it out. So it's not even something that I did on purpose. But I think everywhere I go, I notice the land. I notice what it feels like underneath my feet, what it smells like, what kinds of things grow there. And eastern New Mexico is the plains, and it's just flat desert, sandy land. And going there, I think, helped me realize that I was an artist, because it's so quiet. I mean, there's not, when you look at the ground, there aren't even lizards there, really, like there are in Arizona.
Wow.
I mean, there's just you really have to be quieter to notice what is there. Whereas here, there's trees, there's moss growing on the rocks, there's vegetation, there's flowers growing in the cracks in the sidewalks. And there, you have to really work to make things grow. And But there's so much life there, but you have to be a lot quieter to find it. And I think achieving that kind of quietness helped me get the peace of mind, or not really peace of mind, but quietness of the mind that I needed to create.
The mind frame.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I just have so many questions besides these questions. Now that you're back on this reservation, are you still writing poetry?
Oh yeah, I write all the time. And it's harder to find time having a small baby and working full time, but I, you know, any spare moments that I have, I write. Sometimes I stay up late after my baby goes to bed, and I write poetry then, or sometimes even if I have a few extra minutes during my lunch break, I'll write poetry, or any time when I'm by myself for 5 or 10 minutes, I usually carry paper in my purse, and I write poems or fragments of poems.
That's amazing. That's really wonderful, because you see it. You're seeing things in a new way all the time, it seems. I wanted to ask you a little bit about poetry in healing, like for women with breast cancer, or children who are incarcerated because of schizophrenia and trying to heal in that way.
Yeah, I think poetry is extremely healing, and actually all art is very healing, because without it, some people couldn't express themselves effectively in any other way, whether it's dance, singing, poetry, painting. And I think it just provides you with a voice. It allows you to put a name on something, and I think that's very therapeutic. And you know, like I was saying earlier, some people have said I was you must be a very angry person, because some of my poems are political about, you know, Native Americans, and they are very angry. And but I think that is a necessary thing for healing. It's part of the healing process, and Native American people have a lot to be angry about. And without that anger, then we can't heal. We can't get beyond it if we don't acknowledge the fact that we do have something to be angry about. Then we can move past it. But I see it as part of a healing process.
How is it writing poetry different from other kinds of writing?
Writing poetry, well, for me personally, it comes a lot more naturally to me than writing like a novel, because I'm working on a couple novels right now, and I have to really force myself to sit down and write, whereas poetry, anytime I have a few spare minutes, I have a compulsion to write poetry. But with other kinds of writing, I don't have that same compulsion. And but poetry is a lot leaner style of writing, and I think it's a writing that lends itself to more sensuality, not sexuality, but sensuality, you know, really utilizing the senses of hearing and smell and taste, and really drawing upon our senses to create images. And I don't think other kinds of writing are as amenable to those kinds of images.
Wow. We're going to take a little break right now. I hate to interrupt this, but we need to take a break for a public service announcement, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Hello, here's some more fruit and vegetable news you can really enjoy. Have you ever asked yourself a question, just what are phytochemicals anyway? Well, phytochemical means quite literally plant chemical. And these are substances that actually give plants their beautiful color and also seem to protect the plant itself against its environment. The plant pigments in fruits and vegetables like this one, they don't just add color to your dinner plate. You know, what they do is they add powerful cancer fighters to your diet. Now, try this as an example. This is a sparkling salad. First of all, I just peeled 2 oranges and 4 kiwi fruit, and then I sliced them up in little wedges like this rather than a typical circle, and then slosh on some, really, tonic water, just a sprinkle, and then on top of that, some freshly grated zest of lime, and then stir it all up together and serve it nicely chilled. I tell you, it's so refreshing. Wonderful complement to all kinds of meals. Lovely flavor, lively color, go on. Do yourself a favor and enjoy your 5 or more servings of fruit and vegetables every day. Innovative ideas like this go down really well.
Hey everybody, hi and welcome back to the Good Medicine program, and we're talking with Jennifer Greene, and during the break we had a few little laughs, so that's what we're laughing about right now. And I wanted to talk to Jennifer about how the writing process for you has changed through the years. You seem so young, and yet you're so mature in your writing and have such a vision.
When I first started writing, I had to wait to be inspired. So my writing wasn't as regular as it is now. And I always thought, what would I do if I'm not inspired to write anything? And then when I went to graduate school, where I received my first formal training in writing, I had assignments due every week. So if I wanted to get an A, whether I felt inspired or not, I had to turn in something. So I learned how to make myself feel inspired. You know, some weeks I felt like I don't really have anything that important to say, but I knew how to make myself be in that mode where I felt like I had something important to say. So I learned to, you know, which kinds of places helped me think of things to write. Fast food restaurants I like to go to, just because you don't have like a waitress coming to your table. And then plus I was a college student, I usually couldn't, you know, afford tips. So I would go someplace where I didn't have to give anybody a tip. And, you know, there were people all around living their lives, but they weren't talking to me, and that was inspiring. And listening to music when I write, I do that a lot. That helps kind of get me in the mode. Certain songs remind me of certain places or certain people or certain times in my life. So I like to wear headphones and do writing. You know, when I don't feel inspired, I can create those situations real easily and find something to say.
One of the teachers that I know from my undergrad years used to tell us, open the dictionary, point to a word, and then write about that word. So it was bizarre anyway. But those are little exercises, I guess, too, that make you think about writing. What messages would you give to young people who want to start to write?
Encouraging them to write, just to do a lot of it.
What can they write about?
They can write about themselves. They can write about, that's probably the easiest thing in some ways, and then in other ways it's not.
I think it's hard for Native people to write about themselves. It's not one of the ways that we don't like to tell about ourselves, so for some reason, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's hard sometimes to get perspective, too. I mean, I had to go away before I could write about the reservation, just because I needed some kind of perspective. I needed a place away from it to examine it. But when I'm here, I mean, I'm a part of it. But I think I've been writing long enough, I know how to do that. I can kind of examine things better, you know, and be a part of it at the same time, just because I'm more conscious of that process. But I would encourage kids to write, and write about what they think, what's important to them, not what they think should be important to them. And I think that makes good writing, just, you know, from my experience being a freshman composition instructor. The best papers I got were papers where students really wrote about what they thought was interesting, what they thought was meaningful, not what they thought I wanted to hear. Otherwise it sounded like a really bad Harlequin romance novel. I've talked to you. This is not you. This is not in any way, any part of how you present yourself in person, but in your writing, this is not you. So work at making it authentic and feeling comfortable with noticing what they notice, even if it's in a way no one else notices it, because that's what makes writing interesting. And not to be afraid to make mistakes and revise. I revise everything I write. I'm not one of those writers who writes it and says, well, those are my feelings. And if you change those, you're changing my feelings. And I'm concerned about the craft of writing and how well it's conveying the message. And so I'm willing to revise and revise until it's what I intended to say.
Hold up your book so Winnex Red Elk can get a picture of that on the camera for a minute, and Frank will get it honed in there.
Is it this way?
No, this one over
Okay.
here. And I want to have you tell people where you can get the book.
Okay.
It's called, what is it called?
What I
And-
Keep. Okay, this is my book. It's called What I Keep, and it's on sale right now at the People Center here in Pablo, but also at Barnes & Noble in Missoula. And
SKC Bookstore?
they sold out.
Oh.
I don't know if they've reordered.
Oh, they probably will.
And it's
great.
also on the internet. You can buy it through Barnes & Noble or
Amazon.
Amazon.com, and the Greenfield Review Press. I think you can also buy it through their site on the internet.
Tell us about your future plans and future writing goals.
My future writing goals are, of course, to write more books of poetry, but also to write novels as well, to get into that genre. I like things that are narrative. A lot of my poems are narrative. And I feel like doing a novel would be a really interesting
Challenging
challenge,
too,
but
yeah.
it's hard. But those are my writing goals, is to, continue writing and to get some novels done too.
And when we had the break, you said you might do something else.
Yeah, I may go back to school and either work on a PhD or an MFA just to get some help with my novels, because I haven't had any training in how to do that, and I think having some professional feedback in that area would benefit me a lot. But I would continue with my full-time job, of course. But I think that would be a good thing for me to do at some point in time.
You're a real treasure for this reservation, and people here should be so proud of you.
well,
I am.
thanks.
And before we go, I'd like you to read some parts of your poem, or maybe your favorite poem, so that people can hear it.
Okay, I'll read one poem I wrote about my grandfather, and it's one of my favorite poems. And my grandfather is on the cover
Oh,
with my uncle. So this is a family photograph
oh,
that I
that's
used for the cover
excellent.
of my book. But this poem is called I Take My Home, and I wrote it for him. He smelled immovable like tree sap and sawdust. My grandpa smelled like a man. He was a boxer, fought in a war, had a crew cut, wore suspenders, lived on his homeland, his real homeland where I grew up. I learned to speak English better than the people who told him that Salish was bad. People ask me why I'm not traditional, then look over my shoulder at my homeland like cake to be cut, divided, hoarded, eaten. At a Christmas party, I drank from a teacup with Santa's face filled with eggnog and rum. A woman asked me why I drank, since alcohol had done so much harm to my people. Then she said she went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and bought a tape of Indian flute music, and could I teach her my dances. Big hairy men used to take pictures of me at powwows when I danced. I was a little girl, so I smiled, not clenching my fists around my green shawl, posing for men who thought I was part of a vanishing race. But here I am like a heartbeat. I beat, I beat. I run and stop and look between the lines. My home is in me like the smell of a green pine needle broken in two, strong, fresh. My home is in me like the smell of cold lake water in my skin, my lungs, wherever I go. Wherever I go, my grandfather's hands, plum-colored and strong, are touching mine.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
I hope everybody buys that book. And I can't think of anything else to say, so we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you next time on Good Medicine.
Good Medicine is your program. We hope you watch this and subsequent programs to stay informed about your health care, and we'd like to hear from you about how we're doing. Please direct any comments or suggestions you have to us. You can reach us at